Hey guys, great to see you. Welcome again to Joe Knows. And we have been talking about wisdom from Proverbs. And today I want to kind of talk about wisdom involving children and actually the raising of children. Now, if you've never had children, you're going to be overly idealistic and you're going to be the perfect parent. But once you get into it, you realize quickly that you learn most things from mistakes, and there are plenty of mistakes to be made, but there's plenty of grace to be given in the whole parenting children. But it is a challenging thing, probably one of the greatest challenges you'll ever face in your life. And I think we can learn from each other, but particularly we learn from the scriptures. So Proverbs has some things that it talks about concerning children, and I want to just read just a couple to you. Proverbs 29, verse 15 says, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother." Okay, so the idea that when a child is born, they actually are born with a sin nature. We all are. We inherited that from our great ancestors, Adam and Eve. We have that sin nature, and a child needs to be reproved, needs to be corrected, needs to be given wisdom. If you leave a child to themselves, they will, it says here, bring shame to a mother. Okay, so we see that there. So it's putting the responsibility on parents to work with children to get them to be where they need to be. Proverbs 29, verse 17 says, "Discipline your son, and he will give you rest." Maybe the idea of rest there is peace. He will give delight to your heart. So there is the idea of the responsibility of disciplining, and disciplining can involve spanking and correction in that way, but it can also involve, it's any kind of correction where we try to help change their behavior from being bent to do wrong to being to wanting to do what's right, and that will bring us peace. The response of discipline, here's what it says for the child or the person on the other end of receiving correction or discipline. "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid." Okay. Now, I hate to say it, but the Bible can sometimes be clear. And the child that's growing up, now, the Bible tells us in other places that no one enjoys discipline, but discipline is for our good. And when you have a father, an earthly father and mother that love you, they will discipline you because they love you. They love you more than they want you to like them. They want you to love them, so they do the loving thing and they discipline you. But the person that hates reproof, rejects it, is actually stupid. Now, children will do that, but we need to be consistent enough that we continue to teach them the right thing. Now, I want to just throw something out to you. Because I've had 3 children, I've made every mistake you possibly can make, and guess what? You get all kinds of grace, especially when you're humble. When you admit to your children when you do wrong, they will always forgive you and they'll respect you, and they'll allow you the opportunity to have an influence in their lives. And really, that's what we want as parents. We want to be able to influence our children because we have authority when they're young, but as they get older, that authority, we have to understand that it's not authority that we want. We don't want to be telling a 25 or 30-year-old what time they have to come in at night. We want to have taught them and influenced them so they understand if you stay up all night, unless you're a musician, you're not going to be a very productive person. So we don't stay out all night because we have things to do in the daytime. And we really want to be able to influence them. And as they get older, they will allow us to continue. Long after we have no authority in their lives, they will allow us to continue to influence them. And it's something that's very important. So whatever age your children are, starting today, I want you to really think of it as you want influence in their lives, where they allow you to help them to know right and wrong. And when they're young and you discipline, or when you influence them, discipline is not punitive. Okay? You're not punishing them, and you're not, when you spank a child and when they do wrong, you're not punishing them for what they did. You need to pay for that. You're correcting behavior. And sometimes this spanking is necessary, and other times it's the withholding of privileges, the taking away of different things. But it's always to bring a positive change, and it should always be done in love. Now, having said that, I come from a family where we're pretty expressive, and so there are many times that I have disciplined my children, corrected them. I said I was correcting them, but I was so angry, I really was trying to punish them. And when you're honest about that, and when you admit that, and you apologize, and ask your kids to forgive you, they'll give you the grace. They know when you're doing things wrong, but they'll give you the grace, they'll forgive you, and you'll be able to actually influence them. Now, there's one more verse I want to talk about, and it's a verse that has been misconstrued and misunderstood. It says, and the Proverbs, again, are not promises. They're things that are generally true. It's wisdom. It gives us things about life that if you apply these things, generally speaking, you're going to find these things to be true. And here it is. It says, Proverbs 22, verse 6, train up a child in the way that he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, many people talk about that verse as if it's saying, train up a child according to the ways of Christ, the ways of God, to follow the God of the Bible, and to follow Jesus Christ. Okay? Now, I think we should be doing that. As Christians, we know there's nothing greater we'll give to our children than a faith in Jesus Christ. It's just not what this Bible verse is actually saying. It's not saying train him up in the way that he should go, in the ways of God. It's actually saying train up a child according to his or her bent. It's talking about train up a child according to the way that God has hardwired them. Train up a child to help them to do the very things that God has put in that child as a unique creation of his, and help them to find out what it is that they are called to do. Train them up to do what they're called to do, and when they're old, they'll not depart from that. They will actually become the person that God meant for them to be. Now, as parents, we have to start out by saying that if we have to train them up according to the way that they're bent, then we're not cloning ourselves. We're not allowing them to fulfill the things that we never fulfilled in life. We're not vicariously living through our children. We actually are raising our children to become the people that they were made to be. So you're going to find that each child is a unique artistic creation of our Heavenly Father. They're all different, and they're not the DNA. They may look like us. They may have some things that transfer, but a lot of things don't. And I am the father of 3 children. They're grown. One is 31, the other is 29, and the other is 26. And every one of them completely different. So when it came to, and I'm going to just give you a snippet of this, and when it came to my son Christopher, the way to influence Christopher, the way that his language of responding to me as his father was to respect him, believe it or not. My son Chris is a big, strong person. He's always been strong. And he really thrives in a relationship where, even though he was young, having a respect for him and then being there with him and walking side by side with my son Christopher was a way that opened his heart to allow me to influence him. So I learned to do that. And I was able to do that effectively. And to this day, it's not an accident that him and I together, we walk together. We have a business that we do together. And it's something that I had done long before he did. And then we came in and we started our own. And the way to influence my son is to walk side by side, respecting him. I'll get the respect back, and doing things together. My daughter Brianna, completely different. By the way, Chris broke every rule in the book. He was a strong-willed child. My daughter Brianna was more of a very compliant child who wanted to please, especially her dad. And the way to connect with my daughter, again, you're making a relational connection. Okay. I don't throw the verse out, hey, I'm going to discipline you because I'm your father and you do what I said because. That is a good way to parent children, but it's not a good way to have influence in your children's lives, particularly if you want that influence to go beyond the time that they're living under your roof, which is what a good parent does. The way to connect with my daughter was listen to her. Listen to her. And so I had to always set up times. I had dates with my daughter every week. And she knew that we would go out together and be together. So on those dates, my daughter would have a list of things, sometimes written, sometimes mentally, that she was going to talk to her dad about because she loved to talk to me. There were other times my daughter would have problems. Dad, I need to talk to you. And I knew I was going to be in her room for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I didn't have to do much talking because she was going to do all the talking. But by listening to her, she got everything out. She often would come to the understanding of what the solution was to what she was asking me about. And I would get all the credit for giving the advice, even though I never said a word. Listen to me. To this day, my daughter will call me up before any important decision. I'm very involved in helping her to find her life mate. And that understanding her helped me to be able to parent in as good a way as I possibly could. Now, my son Jojo, the youngest, he is a little different. And he was the hardest to understand. And by the way, children have temperaments, but it's very difficult to know what their temperament is until they move out of the house, because there are so many sociological things that are overshadowing that within the home under the parents, that a neat parent may have a neat child, but you won't realize that they're neat until they move out and have to do it for themselves, because the dynamic of, oh, I'm tired of my parents telling me to make my bed and clean my room, that's going to happen while they're in your home. But when they get out, if they are hardwired to be orderly and neat, you'll see that after the fact. So it makes it a little bit, the family dynamics make it a little bit harder to understand the temperament of a child. But you can still learn things about their personality. So Jojo, his language, the way I was able to connect with him was play with me. So Jojo and I, growing up, we had a hockey game that we played in the hallway. We played Nerf basketball. We played football. We played all kinds of games, and take me out to eat. For some people, it's that easy, because in those settings, they were in a place where they comfortably would, when they were ready, open up and help me to understand who they were, what was going on in their heart. And to this day, and Jojo, to this day, Jojo wants me to always be there for him, but he wants to let me know when it is that he wants to tell me what's going on in his life. So with my youngest son, he's 26, he lives in California, and when he calls me and he's ready to talk, I make sure I listen. And I don't, and here's another, I want to just give you one last thing. I could talk about parenting. It's a passion of mine. And I love my children, but I also love the idea of parenting. It's a great opportunity for us to have an influence for a lifetime. But when you have adult children, here's what I learned. You can take this to the bank. I only answer the questions they ask. That's it. And if they don't ask it, I don't answer it. I do not volunteer information to them because I'm a strong leader and I've been a strong person in their lives, and they know just about everything I believe because I've let them know it. It helps that I was the pastor in the church they were in growing up, so they heard every sermon that I could preach. But what I've learned is that when you offer advice, now when they're young, you're not doing that with a 5, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-old, even a 16-year-old. You sometimes have to offer advice, but when they become adults, they move out of the house, answer the questions they ask rather than volunteering information, and you will find that they're going to ask you a lot more questions, and you will have the opportunity to answer those questions, let them decide what they do, and have influence in their lives throughout their lives. So again, just some wisdom from the Proverbs. We have a role in nurturing our children when they're given to us. They don't just come and then you just let them go and it's automatic. We have a part that we play. Be skillful, look to the Proverbs, and do the best you can. And don't try and be perfect, because you can't. But do the best you can, and at the end of the day, you can say, I gave it my all. God bless you. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this helps you be a better parent.